The crypto market has seen over $1 billion worth of liquidations over the past 24 hours. Tech stocks are going absolutely crazy right now, but as it currently stands, I'm still not worried. And I think for the most part it is so that I am so excited about the 3-month, let's call it 6-month outlook, that I do not care that much about these very short-term issues. And I guess if I was heavily invested in stocks, maybe today would be a bad day for us as well, because Nvidia is down 13% in a day, with the biggest ever gain of loss, I should call it, of $500 billion. Losing it in one day is just absolutely astronomical when you start thinking about it. But over in crypto drama land, a couple of interesting things have happened. One thing is coming from the CEO at Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse, who himself said some thoughts on maximalism. If you do not know what that means, it basically means to be fully in for one thing, right? To be excited, let's just call it, about one specific thing. A Bitcoin maximalist, for example, wants Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. An XRP maximalist wants XRP and XRP only. Let me say this as clear as I can. The crypto industry has a real shot here and now to achieve the many goals we have in common. If we work together instead of tearing each other down, this is not and will never be a zero-sum game. Quote, I own XRP, Bitcoin, and ETH, among a handful of others. We live in a multi-chain world, and we've advocated for a level playing field instead of one token versus another. If a government digital asset reserve is created, I believe it should be representative of the industry, not just one token, whether it be Bitcoin, XRP, or anything else. Maximalism remains the enemy of crypto progress. And I'm very glad to see fewer and fewer folks ascribe to this outdated and misinformed thinking. And I said, well said, Brad, because to some extent, I disagree with this. Only on the level that I do not want to project my thoughts on what the government should do in terms of what they hold. Because in my opinion, if they start with, for example, a Bitcoin reserve, we are quite sure they'll be branching out to other currencies afterwards as well. However, if he means here that it should just be in the plans, then I can kind of agree with that. Because again, from my thoughts is, if you try to get them to do everything all at once, they might not do it. But again, ultimately, I do agree with his thoughts. First of all, I own multiple different cryptocurrencies. It's not 1v1, you know. At the end of the day, I expect most of the coins to go up significantly. If a digital asset reserve is created, I also yesterday described that I do believe they should be holding multiple different tokens. It doesn't make sense for them, especially to hold US-backed coins, but also just stable coins, etc. You know, reserve should have multiple different things, I think. And also, a very big part of that's keeping the crypto space down is that a lot of people are just rooting for their own party instead of just kind of wanting the entire space to succeed. But on the opposite side, that essentially is never going to change, because there are going to be people who only like Bitcoin, who are only like another coin. And to some extent, I do believe only believing in one thing can still bring the crypto space further, because let's say you only believe in Bitcoin. Well, again, if now we get Bitcoin ETFs and then we get this and that and this and that and that only for Bitcoin, like I just said, eventually it will move over into all these other coins as well, if they want it or not. So by them trying their best to get things happening for Bitcoin, I think many others also come. But I think this is as a response to people stating that the guys at Ripple do not want a Bitcoin reserve to be made. And some very close people to the matter said that they've been trying to sabotage it, basically. And I already explained my opinion, which is I think a lot of it is just FUD. A lot of it is just people trying to portray their thoughts on what Ripple should be doing in the background to the foreground. But I think the real thought behind it is Ripple just wants to make sure the US gets a proper reserve going of digital assets. And again, I gotta also agree with Ripple. If I was them, if I was Brad, if I was all these guys, and I had my own coin, for example, I had a very large amount of that coin, and I just had a meeting with Trump saying, hey, where he said, hey, we want to make US coins do well. If I put those dots together, I do also understand from their side that they really want XRP to be in that reserve, or perhaps Ethereum or whatever. Then again, even just is also logical, even for Brad, just getting Bitcoin in the US reserves would be amazing, because the probability that he owns more Bitcoin than you and I is pretty large, right? I don't know how big your pockets are. I mean, mine are pretty stacked, but not this stacked, right? Not Brad Garlinghouse stacked. We can be sure about that. Regardless, I can sit there theorizing that for hours, but there's a couple of other interesting things happening in the land of crypto. One is that a crypto exchange called KuCoin has apparently pled guilty to U.S. unlicensed money transmission charge. This is kind of funny because a lot of people have said in the comments, oh, this is da, 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 and all these opinions. Honest truth, what this basically means is just like with Binance, just like with some other exchanges, all they're saying is, hey, we were operational in the US for a while, and we're going to pay a little fine for that. That's literally all, right? Oh, we have to pay a $300 million fine. Oh, big deal. All these exchanges knew that from the get-go. They all play around with that. They all know they're not allowed to be there. But again, it's more a matter of you better operate and then hopefully you are forgiven. You know, you ask for forgiveness later than not to just join at all. Because first of all, people in the US are always screwed when it comes to crypto. Hopefully now with Trump, that is going to change. That's why I've said for a long time, this is the start of a completely new chapter. But I think it's the start of something completely new, a whole new chapter. And Rookie had some beautiful words. When it's truly over, it's never obvious, right? And that is along the lines of when the market really is at an end or really going to go down hard, you usually really don't expect it to happen. Or you think we're going to go so much further because we're in a raging boom, blah, 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 blah. But right now, it kind of feels like, at least if you look at Twitter, that it's really over. Everybody's pessimistic and negative. And therefore, I think it's not truly over. I like that thought process because it kind of sums up how most people that trade crypto are wrong. And so if everybody's saying we're going to go down, usually that's not the case. Ultimately, we right now have the biggest inflow of, I'd call this huge capital we've ever seen. With, for example, even Standard Chartered saying, when Bitcoin falls, you should buy the dip. And it's kind of funny that banks are now saying this, where a few years ago, everybody was thinking the banks would never like it, they would always be against it, but they are standing in line to join in on our ranks. But just realize that right now the crypto space mostly is going down because, look at this, freaking $800 billion was wiped out of the US stock market today. Nvidia down 17%, even though, really, it doesn't make a lot of sense for Nvidia to go down. Regardless of the advancements made, they want the freaking chips. So a lot of people are buying the Nvidia dip, by the way, a little off on side note. Regardless, if you're asking me what is my medium-term plan, because there's a very big difference between a long-term plan and like more on the medium to a short-term side, I'm not really thinking of selling everything here. And when I'm looking through the comments, there are a lot of people who say, Dusty, this is where we really start going crazy, huh? Towards the downside. And I keep responding saying, well, when you really start analyzing it, there's no real good reason to go down this far. And Ansem had a couple of interesting words to say about XRP and Trump coin. Ripple and Trump coin are the best gauges for real retail buyer exhaustion. If we are still in a raging bull market, then this will reclaim red and send past all-time highs. I'm in camp that alts have topped for the next few months, so expecting rejection here on this bounce and continued downtrend. So what that basically states is that currently, looking at the XRP price, we need to reclaim the $3.05-ish level or so. We bounced off of that multiple different times, and the couple of times that it did break, it was a pretty big cascade, at least twice right now. Right now, we just had ourselves a beautiful retest. Man, again, anybody who's been watching the channel for a while knows that 270 to 260 was the best area to buy at. I hope a lot of you guys got yourself some juicy positions in, but that's besides the point. Right now, we're basically fighting the battle again at roughly the $3.05 mark. We just hit it a little bit ago, and right now we bounced off of it again, and we're right now between a rock and a hard place, as again, we either break 305 and start going, or we get rejected and fall right back to perhaps 287 or maybe even as low as before. Obviously, for the most part, depending on what Bitcoin does, what precedent it sets. But if you're looking to trade, by the way, make sure you check the link down below to Blowfin and think about the market like this. If we have a reasonable expectation of a multiplier of, let's call it 7 to 10 over a 6-month time span, for example, on coins like XRP, what is the maximum downside, right? What is the drawdown? What do we expect can happen in a negative sense? Do we think XRP can go below $1 this cycle? No, we do not. Do we think it can go below $2.50? Yes, we can. It could happen, right? There are some scenarios in which it happens. Do we think it could go below $2 this cycle? We think so. It could happen. Do we think it could go below $1.50? No. And so it's somewhere, the bottom that I kind of project in a worst case scenario is somewhere in the midst of that. I would say, let's call it $1.80, for example, of one of my worst case scenarios for the coin. So let's just say it could do about half of what it is right now in my worst case. But if I think about the better cases, not best case, but better cases, what will the price be at over a 3-month, 6-month time span, or maybe even next week? Again, depending on how good we see it. Because even if it goes down in one of our worst case scenarios, almost all my worst case scenarios, except for the absolute worst, but almost all my worst case scenarios, they all kind of end up with this loss of perhaps even half my capital for a short duration before a bloom that heavily outweighs any downside. So if I, for example, see a 40% correction, I do see that being followed up by a 17x result, for example. So let's just say it goes down to $1.60, for example. I do believe that pretty quickly afterwards, we will see more than a 10x from that level. And so regardless of what happens on the short term, on the medium term, I think whatever price we're able to get then on the downside is going to be 10x. So if I basically see it like that, I've stated multiple times that I still think XRP could 10x from here, right now where we're at. But there are some caveats to that depending on how high Bitcoin goes. But I would say if we take the local bottom, which right now is about $2.65 or something like that from today, right? We call that the local bottom. We basically see the top of the bull market as a 10x from whatever that number is at. So if we are managing to go down to $1.60 or whatever, then we're putting our target for the end of the bull run at $16. If we go down to about $2.05, we expect it to go to, let's call it $20.50. This is not perfect. I'm just stating that's kind of like my thinking process of whatever my lowest price is going to be, I'm just going to be stacking up. And I want to keep it realistic and kind of like on a minimal. Meaning, even though I might think it's going to go to $27 a coin, if it goes as low as $1.60 right now, I'm putting my actual target significantly lower just to avoid disappointment. And because at that point, all I need is just to realize that whatever price I buy at last is going to 10x from there, minimum. You know, it's not a guarantee, but that's like my baseline. It could do more. It could do 20x, but then a 10x minimum. All I need to do is just keep it up and consistently buy. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not your financial advisor. We could be going way lower. But again, from my perspective, regardless of what happens on that medium to short term, and I call it short term really, if people start panicking out and going crazy right now, I still think it is worth it to continue this buying streak because again, I know where we'll end up eventually. I still think regardless of how low it goes, it'll 10x in the next month, 2 months, 3 months after that. So if we see a low point in a week or 3, I still think we will just bounce off from that, see crazy heights, and that's what just keeping me so excited to look at these markets because it just doesn't really matter. Whatever happens, we'll make more on it, so it doesn't matter. Those are my thoughts. Just wanted to quickly share them with you. You may agree, you may disagree, 𝗕𝗓, but that's about it for my thoughts on the market. And make sure, again, if you're looking to trade, check out the links down below to some of the platforms that I'm trading on, and make sure you put that notification bell on so you're always notified whenever something crazy happens. Yeah, that's about it.